Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. My name is Richard Thompson, and today we have a solo episode. And today we're talking about staying in your own lane. And I think, at least personally, that has been a really conscious decision that I've had to make in the last maybe, I think, 5 years, maybe 10 years, to really, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it. There are chinks in that armor, but when it comes to caring about what others think, or I guess making decisions based on what others believe, I've been pretty good with that, but not perfect, that's for sure. So I thought I'd run you through a few ideas that I've been able to find that would maybe help you focusing on yourself and focusing on what you want to achieve in this life, and being less impacted by the external. So the first step is to create a clear vision of life that you want to lead. So it's a fairly simple step, but it's also understanding that we only have one life. Like, this is an all-in game. When it's game over, it's certainly game over in this form. So it's with that you need to set the whole parameter and to understand that you are in control of where you're headed and where you are right now. And you need, I think I've said this in a previous episode, that if you have the power to take a sole ownership, or like I think Jocko Willink says, extreme ownership, but you take ownership of the fact that that the position you are in now is a result of your own making. If you can afford yourself that, which does take some time to accept, because it means you have to accept the way that you've reacted to things going wrong in your life. But if you can have that courage to accept that, or take that extreme ownership for where you are now, it allows you to have the power for extreme ownership as to where you're headed. So that is solely within your control. If you just say, well, I'm in this dead-end job because I have to be, then not only are you not accepting, you're not taking ownership of your decisions to be right here in this moment in a shit job, but you're almost powerless. You're not giving yourself any permission going forward. So you've got to take control. You've got to take ownership about where you are now to allow yourself to go anywhere you want going forward. Second step is very simply then, once you've taken that ownership, is to set the goals that you want to set and what you want to achieve, knowing that you can achieve anything you want and that it has to be driven by passion and that has to be authentic and not disingenuous. But you set those goals, and it's from my experience is that we are our own ceiling when it comes to goal setting. And everyone brings to the table different experiences about success or failure and different goals, and you're sort of biased a little bit around that. But if you sit at the edge of your bed and just contemplate what you'd like to achieve, and this isn't done very often, I don't think, from the majority of people, you take stock of your life and you go, okay, well, that's fine, but where do I want to be? Where do I want to be in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years? What do I want to achieve and I usually use this idea of if money and opportunity weren't in question. So if you wanted to do something and forgetting monetary demands and forgetting opportunity issues, like, what would you go and do? What would you point towards? What would you want to achieve? So you set those goals, and it's it's daunting, and it's not an easy process to write that down. But it's also understanding. It gives you an understanding of who you are by saying, I want $1 million in the bank account. I want a home to bring up a family, and I want a family. I want to find someone. I want to find a spouse that I can share my life with. Whatever the situation is, by understanding that you do have that ownership, you do have control, and you do have the power to go and find that or manifest that, is really important for you to understand. Alternatively, that's the game, right? What's the alternative? The alternative is, I'll just sit at home and wait for that to happen. And look, it didn't happen. And then you continue to blame and everyone else, everything else apart from yourself, without taking that ownership. So setting goals is really important. And then once you've set the goals, that's when I think it's that moment. Now you've set goals, so that's a really important moment in the sense that you can achieve them or not. It becomes very polarizing. It's going forward. You're either going towards the goal or going away. Every decision that you make is for or against where you're wanting to achieve. And so that's when you can get really seduced by looking sideways, by looking at your competitors, by looking at what other people are doing. And it may be people that are on that same trajectory. It may be someone who's not doing that at all, and you're looking at them as well. Or you might be getting, I guess it's the comparison issue. It's the comparison problem that will slow down your progression towards where you want to go. And in some ways, outside influence is good because it will motivate you and it may shift the way you want to move going forward in a positive way. But more often than not, that I've seen is that the outside influence is really challenging, and all it does is either takes your eye off your own destination and your own where you're wanting to go and achieve, away from that and moving that energy to somebody else. It's also understanding that everyone else is on a different timeline. They're on their own journey and they're battling their own battles, and they bring to their own table a different set of facts than you do. I think it's this idea that, well, they're human, so they must be like me. And why would they act like that if they're just like me? And the reality is they're just not like you, and no one is. And so they may go about their business in a different way than you would, and that's okay. And I think as soon as you detach away from that, as soon as you let go of that weight of, well, this is the way they do it, or this is what they're saying about it, then I think it frees you up to maintain your trajectory and stay in your lane, but maintain where you're headed in the best possible way for you. The second last tip, I guess, is accepting that influence it has a real potential of being a negative for you, and reducing the amount that you see in other people's lives. And I think Gabe last week mentioned about that idea of not only staying in your lane, but detaching away from the news, detaching away from social media, or even unfollowing unhelpful accounts, because you need to be very honest with yourself. Is this moment in time that I'm using to turn on the news or to scroll on Instagram, and what are the people that what are you seeing there, and being really honest with yourself as to whether or not that's helping your goals. And those goals can be business, can be family, can be personal, whatever they are. And more often than not, people don't really want to have that conversation because they think the outcome is going to be that if you're being true to yourself and you believe in the goals that you want to achieve, and you have the understanding and belief that you have ownership of that, social media is great if it's going to help you and encourage you and inspire you to get you to the end, to your goal faster. But more often than not, it's just a vessel for comparison and a vessel for this taking yourself away from being in your own lane, which inevitably will slow you down to where you want to go, and will just be in the masses and not, I don't think, prioritizing or giving true value to your own time, because that's really important. And then finally, the way to do that is another step, and the final step to staying in your own lane is practicing gratitude and being grateful and being present. Every week I do a thing where I'll journal, and I don't journal very often, usually when I'm only struggling, which is not uncommon. But I do make a habit every week. I'll write a little page, sort of like a 5-page, half an A4, whereby I will have the top 5 things that I want to achieve this coming week. Not uncommon. What I'm focusing on a sort of more broader scale, and importantly, what I've learnt. And I'll go back the week before. It's the same one book, same page, sequential pages. But I'll look at what I was wanting to achieve and what I was wanting to focus on. Did I achieve what I was set out to achieve? And did I focus on the things that I wanted to focus on? And then understand why I wasn't able to do it, or if I was. And that's been a really big eye opener. Being your own boss, or you're being really responsible and taking the ownership of, and even on a weekly basis, it's almost like a weekly review. I used to do have always done a lot of to-do lists going forward, but never have I done a lot of reflection work on the previous week. And that's instrumental. And a lot of the time I get frustrated with myself for not being grateful and not being in this moment. So that'll be a focus to do for the week ahead. And if I've nailed one of the focuses, I usually don't carry it over to the next, because I'll aim for look at something else to focus on. But staying in the moment or being grateful has been every single week. And I do really struggle with that, right? Because there's so many things going on, and I get frustrated with myself for not being able to do that all the time, or as much as I'd like. So that's definitely a work in progress. But I do believe that if you can be grateful, if you bring gratitude to a moment, or to your life generally, but certainly to a moment, you'll realize that you can't be angry. You can't be jealous. You can't compare if you're grateful. And so it's a really great grounding technique to really and truly embrace gratitude. And that will dispel, or that will dissipate the feeling of that when you do feel like you're being drawn into that comparison piece. So that's pretty much it. I do think staying in your own lane is so important to being successful in any aspect of life. I know with what Cody and I are doing coming up next year and doing, we've caught ourselves both out on reminding ourselves to stay in our own lane, particularly when you're sort of launching a new business or a new venture, or it's so easy to be allured to go, what are they doing? Or they're the people that I'd like to sort of be like or be better, but it's not healthy. It's healthy that there's competition, and that's what drives you as well. But you want to be your own thing. You want to stay in your own lane. You want to be you want to be authentic. You want to be driven from a place of passion, and let that be the motivator, rather than keep a look over across the fence and trying to work out what the competitors are doing, or what other families are doing, or what the next post on Instagram of that person is doing. It's just not helpful. And I think we would be more successful and more happy if we did less of it. I hope that makes sense. I hope you got something out of that. But I just felt like it's something that we are dealing with at the moment and was worthwhile discussing. If you did enjoy it, let us know. Rate us where you can. Share it with someone you think would enjoy it as well. And thank you for following along on this little podcast journey. Until next time. Peace.